Welcome to the debate. Right now, there is an artificial intelligence system that can, look at a student's keystrokes, measure the exact milliseconds they hesitate on a fraction problem, and instantly map how their brain learns.
Yeah.
It creates this localized feedback loop to target cognitive bottlenecks in real time. It is, by all accounts, an educational miracle. It is also, it's one of the most invasive data collection apparatuses ever put inside a classroom.
And that right there is the defining tension of this integration. We are watching AI rapidly absorb these deeply human domains, not just education, but, healthcare, the creative industries.
Right.
The question we have to answer is whether relying on these systems as core operators actually enhances our capability or if it fundamentally compromises our agency. Like, are we reducing everything we do to algorithmic optimization?
I argue it is a profound enhancement. What we are seeing in the source material is a new collaborative partnership. We are successfully fusing human intuition with machine precision. Rather than replacing the human element, this technology bridges massive structural gaps in our society. It takes on the computational heavy lifting so that we can operate at a much higher, more intentional level.
See, I look at the exact same material and see a very different reality. While the technical milestones are undeniably impressive, the underlying mechanism of these systems prioritizes historical data over genuine human agency.
How so?
Well, when you look at Hollywood using AI to generate scripts, or schools using it to track cognitive development, you see a systemic homogenization of creativity. We are demanding an unacceptable trade-off regarding data privacy and security, and we're doing it entirely in the name of efficiency.
Okay, well, let's actually look at what that efficiency means in practice, specifically in healthcare. Because the fusion of human intuition and machine precision is producing objective, undeniable goods. Take the robotic surgery developments we're reviewing today.
Right, the surgical arms.
Exactly. The AI isn't replacing the surgeon, it is guiding the robotic instruments. It stabilizes human microtremors and calculates spatial geometry in real time. This allows for sub-millimeter precision in complex maneuvers that human hands simply cannot achieve alone. It accelerates recovery times and improves patient outcomes.
I won't dispute the surgical success. A robotic arm executing a suture with sub-millimeter precision is an incredible physical achievement.
It's revolutionary.
It is. The mechanics of surgery absolutely benefit from rigid mathematical precision. But my concern deepens significantly when we transition from physical mechanics to predictive modeling.
Okay.
That is where the nature of this so-called enhanced precision becomes incredibly murky. Look at the preventative heart disease tool from the research. It analyzes a patient's genetic information alongside their lifestyle factors to output a personalized health assessment.
Which is a massive breakthrough. By analyzing those factors, doctors can actually intervene before a catastrophic cardiac event happens. It shifts our entire medical paradigm from reactive treatment to proactive prevention.
Proactive, yes, but at what conceptual cost? We need to understand how these predictive models actually work. They are not looking at the individual sitting on the exam table.
Well, they're looking at their data.
But the AI is processing a vast data set of millions of other people's genetics and habits to surface statistical probabilities. If we increasingly rely on that algorithm to dictate care, we risk treating patients as mere mathematical averages. Medicine requires a holistic understanding of the patient in the room.
Sure, but
when the AI outputs an 87% high-risk probability, the doctor experiences anchoring bias. They are mathematically anchored to that number. The idiosyncratic reality of that specific human being is essentially flattened into a risk score.
You are assuming the algorithm forces the doctor's hand, but it's actually removing their cognitive bottleneck. Think about how a doctor traditionally works.
Okay.
They have to cross-reference family history, blood pressure, cholesterol, diet, and maybe a dozen genetic markers in their head during a 15-minute consultation.
Right, it's a lot.
The human brain cannot instantaneously calculate the nonlinear correlations across millions of data points. The AI can. By using a multimodal neural network to surface those hidden patterns, the AI gives the doctor a sharper lens. It is exactly like an MRI.
An MRI?
Yeah. An MRI flattens a three-dimensional organ into a series of two-dimensional images, but we don't argue that it reduces the patient to a photograph. It provides the data. The human doctor contextualizes it, freeing them up to focus entirely on the behavioral counseling and human communication that actually saves lives.
An MRI captures the physical reality of the present moment. A predictive algorithm weights certain variables over others based on past data to guess the future. Algorithms are inherently active. They prioritize.
It's an educated prioritization.
And I can accept a certain level of statistical optimization in biology because a clogged artery is an objective failure. But we are taking that exact same optimization logic, the drive to predict and control based on historical data, and applying it to the subjective human soul.
You are bridging this to the creative industries, the AI applications in Hollywood.
Exactly. The source material details this new Hollywood screenwriting AI. We are told it generates, quote, innovative plot ideas and character arcs by analyzing massive data sets of past movie scripts and mapping audience engagement metrics to narrative beats.
Right.
I want to explain exactly why the phrase innovative plot idea is an oxymoron in this context. The AI does not know what a plot twist is.
Well, it knows the structure of one.
It uses token prediction and vector space mapping to determine that certain narrative beats statistically follow other beats in financially successful films. If an AI relies entirely on past data sets to suggest what will resonate tomorrow, it is mathematically designing nostalgia.
It is mapping structural resonance, which is a tool writers have used since Aristotle's Poetics.
But Aristotle didn't enforce a mathematical average. How can a system challenge an audience or subvert an expectation if its entire operational model is built on optimizing what made people feel comfortable in the past? True art requires vulnerability and the willingness to fail. This system is designed to eliminate failure. It homogenizes entertainment.
If we were handing the entire creative process over to an autonomous machine, I would absolutely agree with you. But the evidence points to a collaborative workflow. We have to look at the history of technological integration in art.
Okay, let's hear it. Think about the invention of the camera.
For centuries, the primary utility of painting was photorealism, capturing portraits, landscapes, and historical events exactly as they looked.
Sure.
The camera could suddenly do this instantly, with a precision no human painter could match. The artistic establishment thought painting was dead. But what actually happened? Because artists no longer had to carry the burden of acting as human photocopiers, they were free to explore the subjective nature of reality. The camera was a new mechanical baseline that gave birth to Impressionism, Cubism, and abstract art.
That is a fascinating historical parallel, but it misses a critical distinction about the mechanism. The camera didn't paint the canvas for you.
Neither does the AI. The source material explicitly highlights visual artists using new stylistic emulation models. The AI handles the computational heavy lifting of rendering, light simulation, and textural mapping, while the artist directs the vision.
For visuals, maybe?
They are combining human intuition with machine precision to push boundaries that were previously unimaginable. Apply this to the Hollywood screenwriter. If a writer uses AI to generate 10 permutations of a second-act structural plot point based on audience reaction data, the writer can look at those 10 derivative, mathematically safe options, discard them, and intentionally write the unpredictable 11th path. The machine provides the baseline of the expected, which is exactly what allows the human to define the unexpected.
I know what you're thinking as you explain this. It sounds incredibly empowering. You are describing a highly intentional, idealized artist using the AI as a sounding board. But we have to look at the economic reality of the industry implementing this tool.
The industry has always been economically driven.
Yes, but Hollywood, much like healthcare, operates at massive corporate scale. When a studio executive realizes that an AI can instantly output a mathematically safe script that guarantees a 15% demographic return, the incentive to fund the human writer's risky 11th path completely vanishes.
I think you're...
The AI doesn't just suggest the baseline, it becomes the ceiling. It normalizes a highly polished algorithmic mediocrity that will crowd out genuine human vulnerability.
Corporate risk aversion has existed long before artificial intelligence. Studios have been greenlighting derivative sequels for decades based on spreadsheet projections.
You are blaming the algorithm for human economic behavior.
The algorithm facilitates it at an unprecedented scale.
The technology itself expands capability. And if you want to see where this collaborative partnership model truly shines, where it actively dismantles the kind of corporate or institutional homogenization you're worried about, we have to look at the classroom.
Let's follow that thread to education then. Because the underlying mechanism here, the constant analysis of human behavior to optimize a desired outcome, reaches its most ethically fraught state when applied to children.
I see the classroom application as one of the most vital developments in our lifetime. We are looking at an innovative AI-driven educational platform that genuinely helps teachers personalize learning experiences.
Personalize or monitor.
Consider the traditional classroom: 30 students, one teacher, one standardized curriculum. It is a statistical inevitability that some students are left behind because the pace is too fast, while others disengage because it's too slow. That is the ultimate homogenization.
Okay.
This new AI platform bridges those learning gaps by analyzing student performance in real time and offering tailored resources that cater exactly to an individual's learning style. It completely upends the archaic one-size-fits-all model.
It upends it by introducing localized surveillance. Let's look at the actual mechanism of analyzing student performance in real time. To provide that localized feedback loop, the platform cannot just grade a multiple-choice test at the end of the week.
Right, it's continuous.
It must process the student's micro-interactions. It tracks keystrokes, hesitation times, error correction rates. It measures exactly how long a student's mouse hovers over a wrong answer before moving to the right one.
Which allows the system to identify exactly where the cognitive bottleneck is happening. If a student stalls on dividing fractions, the system immediately provides a visual aid to help them over the hurdle.
Yes, and the cost of that immediate help is an unrelenting demand for data. The source material acknowledges the ongoing discussions about data privacy, but I argue this is not just a minor regulatory hurdle. It is a fundamental clash of structural values.
How so?
We are telling a generation of students that to learn effectively, they must submit to being constantly monitored and quantified. You cannot guarantee true student data security while simultaneously demanding an algorithm process their every cognitive move. The very mechanism that makes the AI effective, massive data ingestion, is the exact mechanism that compromises the student's privacy.
You are treating data ingestion as if it inherently requires a permanent centralized panopticon. This is a solvable engineering problem. Data can be anonymized.
Anonymized data is frequently re-identified.
More importantly, the processing can be done locally on the device rather than sent to a massive cloud server. The data doesn't have to be permanently tied to the student's identity. It can exist merely as a temporary session state to guide the learning module and then be wiped. If we let the fear of potential data misuse prevent us from utilizing real-time analytics, we are condemning millions of kids to an educational model that we know actively fails them.
It isn't just about a data leak or a hacker stealing math scores. It is the psychological normalization of the surveillance itself. In psychology, there is a concept called the Hawthorne effect.
Right, where people change their behavior when they know they're being observed.
Exactly. When we condition children to expect that every intellectual struggle, every pause, every mistake is being measured and reacted to by a machine, we alter the nature of learning. Learning requires a private space to fail. It requires the safety to be confused without being instantly optimized.
But the AI isn't judging them, it's supporting them. And it doesn't replace the teacher's judgment. The evidence is clear that the platform helps teachers personalize the learning. The teacher is still the conductor of the classroom.
Sure.
The AI is simply acting as a dashboard, highlighting which students need the teacher's immediate human intervention and which can proceed independently. It is the exact same dynamic as the robotic surgery. The human directs, the AI is the precise instrument guiding the intervention.
The analogy breaks down because a classroom is not a surgical theater. When a patient is on an operating table, the goal is a rapid, precise mechanical alteration. Optimization is the perfect goal for surgery.
I'd argue it's good for learning too.
But a student is a developing consciousness. Let's use a different analogy. Think about a GPS navigation system. A GPS optimizes for the fastest, most efficient route. It routes you entirely around the traffic jam.
Right.
But in education, The traffic jam is where the learning actually happens. The struggle, the inefficiency, the getting lost and finding your way back, that is what builds cognitive muscle. If the AI is constantly jumping in with a visual aid the second a student hesitates, we are optimizing for the fast route. We risk optimizing for test scores at the expense of intellectual resilience.
I don't think preventing a child from drowning in confusion is the same as routing them around the learning process. It is giving them the specific scaffolding they need to climb the wall themselves. And, well, that brings us right back to the core of this debate.
Yeah.
When I synthesize what we've discussed today, I see a clear trajectory. Whether we are achieving unprecedented surgical precision that drastically improves patient survival, or providing artists with a foundational tool that frees them from computational rendering, or using real-time analytics to finally dismantle the one-size-fits-all classroom, the truth remains the same.
Which is?
Human capability is vastly expanded when we treat AI as a collaborative partner. Yes, it forces us to adapt, but by taking on the immense burdens of data analysis and structural optimization, it frees us up to be more empathetic doctors, more intentional artists, and more effective educators.
I understand the optimism, but my stance is grounded in the structural reality of the mechanisms we are deploying. I readily acknowledge the staggering technological milestones, particularly in environments like surgery that genuinely demand physical precision.
Of course.
But our systemic reliance on these algorithms introduces grave conceptual risks when applied to subjective human domains. When we rely on token prediction to optimize creative output based on historical data, we mathematically standardize human creativity. When we deploy real-time behavioral tracking to personalize education, we normalize constant surveillance and treat personal data as a fair trade for efficiency. The gains offered by these systems often demand a subtle yet profound surrender of our autonomy.
I think where we fundamentally converge today is on the understanding that artificial intelligence has evolved far beyond a passive tool sitting in a toolbox. It is not just software. It is an active participant in our institutions, and it is fundamentally reshaping traditional human roles across every sector. We are being forced to redefine what the baseline of human effort actually looks like.
I completely agree. Because the system is active, it changes the environment it enters. The friction we are exploring today, the homogenization of art, the privacy demands of real-time tracking, the anchoring bias in medicine, these are not minor bugs to be patched out. They are the defining structural challenges of integrating algorithmic logic into human spaces.
And the ultimate impact of this technology will depend entirely on how intentionally we design the boundaries of this partnership. We cannot sleepwalk into this integration. It requires rigorous, ongoing scrutiny from all sides to ensure we are utilizing the precision of the machine without losing the nuance of the human.
Precisely. If we don't actively protect our right to unmeasured, unstructured spaces, our right to make art that defies historical data, or a student's right to struggle privately, the algorithm will simply optimize those inefficiencies away.
It is a profound balancing act. For centuries, we viewed human traits like intuition and creativity as unquantifiable magic. Today, we have machines that can map our genetic probabilities, track our cognitive development in milliseconds, and mathematically chart the emotional resonance of our stories.
Yeah.
As these systems grow more sophisticated, the question isn't whether we can quantify the human experience. The question is, once we have the capacity to measure everything, what parts of ourselves will we intentionally choose to leave unmeasured?
That's the real question.
Thank you for joining us on The Debate.